We have talked a fair amount about the state of the workplace, and in many respects, not been good, right? I mean, we know mental health has been a huge problem during the course of the pandemic. And with a lot of people kind of coming out of that mindset, hopefully that starts to improve. But, you know, the getting there still, it's not like you just snap your fingers and things go right. But somebody who knows a lot about this and can always provide good guidance, Lee Richardson from the Brain Performance Center. In fact, Lee actually created a stress management program specifically to deal with these types of issues. Lee, good to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about the state of our minds as it pertains to the workplace.
Well, you know, Brian, if there's anything good that's come out of the last 2 years, it's, I think, that people are understanding the importance of mental health. I saw a recent poll that the American Psychiatric Association did, and it shows that 25%, 1 out of 4 of us, are going to make mental health a top priority in 2022.
Well, that is really encouraging. Excuse me, clear my throat. That is really encouraging. The flip side of that is, you know, I take a look at so much of what we ended up doing during the course of the pandemic, and it really was counterproductive to mental health. And you take a look at people that ended up locking themselves away, staying away from others, not being able to engage in the types of events and with people and in settings that made them happy. Can that have a permanent impact on somebody? Or if we are of otherwise sound mind, are we able to come out of that as soon as our behavior changes?
Well, you make a really good point. I mean, the psychological impact of being quarantined, being locked in your house, with how you do your work changing, how your kids go to school changing, your loss of community. You know, we couldn't go to church for weeks. We couldn't go to the gym. I mean, all of that has a significant impact. And I don't think we fully have seen the full impact of that yet. I think that'll be coming for years to come. And I think, you know, you're very right in that it's encouraging to hear people say that they're going to make that a top priority. But did you know people will deal with a mental health illness on the average for 10 years before they seek help?
Okay, so on that note, a lot of people tend to be stubborn with a lot of things. I mean, you know, right down to not noticing that there's a pending heart attack until one's happened, right? So in that context, if we think about it with mental health, the 10-year mark you're talking about, on one hand, when I hear it, it sounds shocking. On the other hand, it's understandable. What are signs, and not necessarily signs for us to go looking at other people, but maybe signs for ourselves? You know, if we maybe are not in a good place, what's an indication?
Well, I think, you know, if we look at our sleep habits, have our sleep habits changed? How about our nutrition, the way we eat changed? Are we more irritable? Are we getting into more arguments with our coworkers, with our families, with our friends? You know, we have to stop and look at ourselves and say, the way I'm interacting, the way I'm engaging in my daily life, has that changed?
How much of a mental health issue is catalyst driven versus predisposition that just over time manifest or is understood?
Well, and that's a really good question. And I think that really does depend on, you know, there's 4 things. You get the brain in a dysregulated state: genetics, physical head trauma, emotional trauma, and stress. So I think which one of those people react to the most depends upon their brain DNA.
You talk about the brain DNA, and this is something that is fascinating to hear you discuss. You from the perspective of understanding our brain and how that plays into this. Give us a little bit of an overview of this philosophically.
Well, you know, the brain is an organ just like the heart. The brain weighs 3 pounds, and it's amazing to me. Did you know the brain puts off enough energy to light, not to dimly light a light bulb, but we need all of that energy to keep everything running, our body and our brain running throughout the day. And I think that what we don't really stop and think about is that, you know, how much water are we drinking? The brain's 60% water. So if you're dehydrated, is that going to impact how your brain works? Yes, sir. It certainly is. And how much sleep are you getting? I mean, all day long, when those neurons and dendrites are wiring and firing, they're creating toxic waste. But you have these little glia cells, and when you're asleep, they come out, and they're like those little scrubbing bubbles, you know. They go around, they clean up all that mess. But if you're not getting enough sleep, and a lot of us, our sleep habits have changed greatly in the last 2 years, then that has an impact on how the brain works.
These are all really good points. Lee Richardson, the Brain Performance Center. Always good talking with you. Have a great weekend.